New Orleans Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler may be in for a quarterback competition, but it's clear that this opportunity is not too big for him. We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net and Saints analyst with WWL TV. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, I'm starting to warm up to the idea of Trevor Penning moving to the inside. I want to tell you all about what might be Kellen Moore's favorite run play and how it could impact some big names for the New Orleans Saints. And we're going to kick everything off with a look at how this quarterback competition does not seem to have Spencer Rattler shaken at all. We got all that and more for you on today's show. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen and being an everyday or here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This quarterback competition might be the biggest story in New Orleans sports, at least, not the biggest story in New Orleans right now, but biggest story in New Orleans sports at the moment. And that does not seem to have Spencer Rattler on edge at all. He met with New Orleans media during the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame golf tournament. And one of the things that he talked about was this quarterback competition and what you could see from him. And this is something that we've seen from him from the moment that he was drafted, is the maturity that he brings to this conversation. Look, I've been very consistent on the quarterback competition for the New Orleans Saints in my belief that Spencer Rattler deserves a fair shot. I'm just not sure that he's going to get it because Kellen Moore got the opportunity to handpick his quarterback in Tyler Shough. And so I expect that Tyler Shough eventually is the Saints starting quarterback. But I do believe very, very much that the Saints can find success with Spencer Rattler and that Spencer Rattler should be given a fair shot. We did a whole show on it not too long ago. And one of the reasons why I believe that is because of what he showed in his interview at the golf tournament. And that is that maturity, that poise, that confidence. If you watch Spencer Rattler over the course of his 6 starts, 7 total games that he appeared in last season, including coming in the second half of the Washington Commanders game, where he almost, stormed this team back for a win in that matchup. They were 1 drop away in the end zone from winning that game on a 2-point conversion. And I think that when you look at all of that time, which included highlights, included low moments, included struggles, included bad decisions, included incredible plays, it included all of it, right? Which is what you expect to see from a rookie quarterback getting their first start without really being prepped to be a starting quarterback because the head coach couldn't make up his mind about who the starting quarterback was going to be until the interim head coach came in, right? Remember, the Saints were kind of taking this all the way down to the end of the practice week. These guys weren't getting full-on practice reps, all this other stuff. It wasn't great. It was not a good way for Dennis Allen to go about this situation, but that's why he's not a head coach anymore, and certainly why he's not a head coach in New Orleans any longer. And so looking at all of that, and despite the sort of ups and downs and roller coasterness and all that, Spencer Rattler never looked shaken during any of his games, never looked rushed, never looked like he was out of control, anything like that. And you certainly notice that in his weekly pressers. Notice that when you talk to him in the locker room, there was a poise. And that poise means a lot when it comes to this quarterback position. And I think that him showing that even more in a new situation, a brand new situation for him, coming into now a competition to be the starting quarterback of an NFL franchise, the New Orleans Saints, and possibly the future of that franchise. Seeing the poise in the interview, I think, is one of those things that you like to see. And look, it was a 3-minute and 50-second interview. But to see that this moment was not too big for him and that he was not shaken by this quarterback competition, I think says a lot. Kellen Moore's offense also should be able to play pretty well to the things that Spencer Rattler can do. When he and I spoke exclusively in a one-on-one interview last season, one of the things that he talked about was wanting to feel like in the Tampa Bay game, he felt that he had used his legs a lot better in that game. Something he wanted to focus on over the course of the offseason was speed, lower body strength, things like that, so that he could feel more comfortable using his legs in the process if he gets more opportunities. And so now here he is getting another opportunity. He told me during that interview that when you saw him again in 2025, that he would be a new quarterback, that he would be a new person, basically. And so now you pair that with a new head coach and a new offensive system that could support what it is that he's bringing to the table. And there's a lot to be excited about. The way that Kellen Moore utilizes RPOs would mirror and complement pretty well the things that Spencer Rattler can do, especially going back to his collegiate days where he did run those RPOs, the play action game and the all-out game, all these other things, the ability to be able to run that type of system and call that kind of system for your quarterback who has experience running that as a collegiate quarterback, all these other things, I think ends up complementing pretty well what Kellen Moore would be able to do around a Spencer Rattler. Quick passes as well. Remember, Spencer Rattler was sacked, I think it was 22 times, most out of any of the New Orleans Saints quarterbacks last year, despite having only 6 starts, as compared to Derek Carr's 10 starts, for instance. He ends up getting sacked quite a bit, or ended up getting sacked quite a bit. And a lot of it was you were throwing to, third string wide receivers, you have a backup offensive line in front of you, all those other things. But there were times where he held onto the ball a little bit too long. And that's trying to make a play, right? Hoping that something uncovers, trying to hold on, keep the play alive, all those other things. Again, not surprising stuff for a first-year starter or for a rookie quarterback starter. And so now an offense that can really live in that quick pass system, that can scheme up situations and scheme up separation for its wide receivers. That's something that Clint Kubiak didn't do a good job of last year, along with a predictable offense. That was a lot of run outside the tackle, run outside the tackle, run outside the tackle. There wasn't a lot being done scheme-wise that ended up benefiting separation for wide receivers or creating separation for wide receivers, which ends up benefiting the quarterbacks, all those other pieces. Andrew Janocko, genius when it comes to, and I look forward to him eventually being an offensive coordinator in the NFL. He was the Saints quarterback coach last year. He's in Seattle now with Clint Kubiak as the quarterback coach there. Really, really good with the quick pass game. And so I look forward to when he becomes an offensive coordinator and he's able to start to bring that. Kellen Moore, though, can bring that now. The crossing routes, creating congestion, being able to just make a read off of one player. Does the safety bite down? And then what do I do with that? Or does the linebacker get enough depth or not enough depth? How do I do it? One read, quick, be able to get the ball out of the hands, I think are things that will be able to help him as well. And then taking shots when they're available. Spencer Rattler's got an arm. He can make those plays downfield. And so being able to play in an offense that will allow him to be able to open that up, I think is something that would play to his skill set as well. And of course, when you have that quick pass offense, being able to take those shots downfield, even when Drew Brees' arm strength was at its weakest, they still took shots downfield every now and then to force the defense to play and be honest, right? To play honest. And I think that's one of those things that you would look for in this system as well. So I talk a lot about the fairness or unfairness of the quarterback situation and the quarterback competition. But the reality is that the Saints simply need to make the right decision, not just base their decision on who is drafted the highest or who they feel has the most experience. That the decision needs to be made based on who performs best starting today with OTAs, right? As they continue to move forward. Or really starting back to when Kellen Moore walked in and started doing the classroom work and started working with these guys during offseason workouts. Like really that competition begins much earlier than they'll admit that it begins when it comes to the on-field stuff. There's the off-field stuff that ends up kind of factoring into all of this as well. So that's kind of the way that I look at this competition. I still think that Spencer Rattler deserves a shot. I still think the Saints can win with Spencer Rattler. But I also believe that Kellen Moore handpicked a guy, and that's going to kind of leverage things against Spencer Rattler a little bit. But to me, what's most important is that A, Kellen Moore gets to pick who is his starting quarterback, which is what he'll get an opportunity to do with Derek Carr now having retired, and that he picks the right guy based on their performance, not based on their draft status. That's what I think needs to happen. Now, that could work out for Spencer Rattler. That could not work out for Spencer Rattler, but it's clear that when he gets his opportunity on the field, he intends to perform. This moment is not too big for him. Next up, while we're also taking a look at the quarterback situation for Kellen Moore, we got to pay attention to the run game in a Kellen Moore offense as well. And we might have found the play that might be Kellen Moore's favorite rushing attack. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA playoffs have been so much fun. They are in full swing. We're getting a whole different look at potential champions here. Oklahoma City, Minnesota. We got New York. The Knicks are rolling right now, going up against the Pacers soon. So this should be a ton of fun. And FanDuel is going to make sure you've got everything you need to be able to be in the game, whether it's before tip-off or live, everything from game lines to money lines to performance trends to same-game parlays. You can dive into all of it. Anthony Edwards is absolutely rolling right now. Young man could get his first chip. You can look at tonight, Oklahoma City. They are 7.5-point favorites over Minnesota as they kick off those Western Conference Finals. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's a great line to get in on because it's a perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. Get $200 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. So put that down on a heavy favorite. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partners of the NBA. All right, family, we might have found Kellen Moore's favorite run play based on the success that he was able to find with it in Philadelphia. And the reason why I'm highlighting it is because I think that for Kellen Moore, he could find a lot of success with it here in New Orleans as well. And in particular, this play ends up highlighting some of the best strengths that the Saints are set to have in 2025 when it comes to their run game. Make no mistake about it. The Saints are going to run the football a ton in 2025. That is a big part of the Kellen Moore brand. He'll run against heavy boxes. He'll run against light boxes. He'll force you out as a nickel defense and run against your nickel defense with 3 wide receivers on the field. He loves to run the football. He'll run the football in the red zone. He'll run the football, inside the 20s. Like he is a guy that will commit to that run game, even as a quarterback, which is super funny because you would expect that the former quarterback would want to throw the ball 50 times a game instead. But really, he likes a balanced offense. He likes things to be diverse, all of those other things. Man run, zone run, inside, outside. It's all kind of mixed in terms of what it is that he likes to do in that run game. So I think that there are 3 things in particular that this really helps with for the New Orleans Saints going into 2025, who would love to see their run game get going. Again, they've been at their most successful when their run game is working. The first of which is that it highlights the skills of their running back room. Guys like Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal, Kendre Miller, who play with patience. The weak side counter or stutter is what we're discussing here. And the weak side counter is a play that allows the running back a little bit of time because you're playing as if the heavy side of the offense is the play side. And I'll explain all this terminology here in a sec. But you're playing as if the heavy side of the offense is the play side, but then you're countering back towards the weak side after a little bit of a stutter or hesitation from the running back and the quarterback that makes the defense think you're going one way, but really you're breaking it towards the other side of the offensive line. The reason why I highlight that first is because I think what that does is that it gives the running backs an opportunity for a bit of hesitation to watch how the play develops in front of them. The other thing is that I think that it also allows you to be able to spread a defense out a little bit because of what the formation looks like, your ability to be able to utilize this in different ways, how you choose to utilize it, all these other things. But the big thing for me is that it also gets you pulling offensive linemen as these big-bodied lead blockers that can get out ahead of you. And any running back would love that situation. Any running back would love to have this 325-pound offensive lineman out in front of them, getting into the second level, getting into the third level in some cases, and paving the way for them. This 250-plus pound tight end getting out ahead. That's, a solid blocker and a little bit more athletic and all these other things. You like to have that as a running back. So I think that that's what we're looking at as kind of the 3 benefits to this play. So let's explain what the play is. It's this weak side counter. So weak side means that it goes towards the side of the offensive line that has the fewer players lined up. Counter means that you're faking to one side initially, but then you're kind of cutting back in a zig to the other side. So when we talk about the weak side or the heavy side of an offensive line, we're drawing a line at the center where there are fewer players. To one side of the center is the weak side, where there are more players to the other side of the center is the heavy side or the strong side. Very simple situation. So if we draw a line down the center and you go to the left, there's a left guard and a left tackle. 2 players. That's probably going to be, in this situation, your weak side. Draw that line down the center, go to the right. You got a right guard, right tackle, 2 tight ends. You've got 4 players on that side. Therefore, that's your heavy side or your strong side. Now, you might still have 2 wide receivers. Those wide receivers can be, one on one side, one on the other side. They could both be on the weak side. They could both be over on the other. Like there's a bunch of different ways that you can line up those wide receivers, but I'm going to focus mostly on the offensive line here. The idea is that after the ball is snapped, as the quarterback and running back are kind of showing that hezi to one side, or the hesitation to one side, that you get your right guard and your tight end from that right side of the offensive line, the strong side, pulling over to the weak side. And so what they're doing is crossing the formation and becoming lead blockers, because once that running back gets the ball, that hesitation is happening, the stutter, quote unquote, the foot is being planted in the ground, and then they're reversing direction, not in this big, long, like orbital way, but reversing direction directly to that other side of the offensive line, following those pulling offensive linemen. So when you think about the things that a guy like Alvin Kamara does well, patience, balance, obviously pass catching is a big part of that, but contact balance, patience, vision. Those are the big things that stand out about Alvin Kamara. So when you have a play to where he's taking this kind of false step to one side, the vision is being checked in, right? You have the opportunity now to be able to see everything that's developing in front of you. How is your offensive line setting up its blocks? How is the defense reacting to your initial sell of your run to the strong side? And then being able to break to the other side, that's where you now get the patience. You allow that right guard to get in front of you. You allow that tight end to get in front of you. If the formation is flipped and you're heavy to the left side before you begin, and then you're running to the right side because that becomes your weak side, then all of a sudden your left guard is pulling and your tight end is pulling. Same thing. You're letting everything develop in front of you. And then you have the balance, you have the burst, you have the ability to be able to fight through contact. That is something that then becomes picked up later on down the line. What you really like about this play is that it does give you the opportunity to create quite a bit of yards before contact. That's the amount of yards that the offensive line effectively creates for a running back before a defender makes any contact with them. So you're looking at yards before contact, yards after contact being after broken tackles, things like that. Yards before contact is a stat that the Philadelphia Eagles led big time in last year. You'd like to see that be the case here for the New Orleans Saints as well, that they're getting better in that situation. A lot of times over the course of the past few years, when the run game wasn't working, it's because the offensive line wasn't creating that yards before contact opportunity for the running back. They weren't resetting the offensive, or rather the line of scrimmage, by walking defensive linemen back. What this play does is that it allows you to be able to build sort of this, you're able to kind of construct this blocking wall on the backside of the play, which would be, wherever the strong side was. And then you get those pullers that are leading the way as lead blockers over to the weak side. So if you're able to build that sort of protection unit on the backside of the play, which doesn't allow, defenders to come and make a play from the opposite side and things like that, get around the edge, all those other things. And then you get those lead blockers out in front of you, plus the perimeter blockers from those wide receivers who are going to be asked to block on the perimeter quite a bit. That way you're not allowing some type of boundary defender or defensive back to come in and muck the play up a little bit. But then you get that guard up to the second level. You get that tight end over and winning on the edge to reset that edge. Then that allows you to be able to create that hole for you to be able to go as a running back and get those yards before contact. So I think that becomes a really important piece to all of this as well. And I think that this is something that could play to the New Orleans Saints' strength. Now, you might also say, well, Ross, the Philadelphia Eagles did that with an outstanding offensive line. And more importantly, they did it with Saquon Barkley. And that is true. There's no doubt about that. Like, the Saints would have to be able to replicate some degree of success without necessarily replicating the exact success that roster was able to put together. I completely understand that. I'm 100% with you on that. However, I will highlight that the Eagles ran this play late up against the Los Angeles Rams in the playoffs, and Will Shipley broke it for an 82-yard run. So being able to set up the blocks properly, it doesn't matter who has the ball in their hands. Obviously, you want you to be able to maximize the play because of who has the ball in his hands. For instance, that 82-yard breakaway, Will Shipley got caught from behind and did not score a touchdown. If that was Saquon Barkley, that's a touchdown. But you get the point. The play still operates whether you pick up 82 yards. It still works if you pick up 10 yards and you move the chains. That's going to be the big thing here. So I would absolutely be watching out for this play if I'm the New Orleans Saints, and if I'm a New Orleans Saints fan and I'm watching these games, stuff like that. As I'm watching games, I'll definitely be watching out for this as well. And it could be perfect for a guy like Trevor Penning, especially if the Saints were to move him inside. He proved to be such a spectacular run blocker last year that this is the type of play that has really opened my eyes to the ability to be able to potentially move him inside and find a lot of success. That's what I want to get to next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. I am finally opening my eyes to the idea of moving Trevor Penning to guard. It took many years. It took much time. I want to explain why my mind is changing on the idea. I want to also give you an idea of why I push back against it so much, and why I think that this could potentially be successful, why it could potentially be on the way, and how it could help the Saints in the long run and Trevor Penning in the long run as well. So let me explain first why I think I was so hesitant around this idea before. The fact of the matter is that anybody that you talk to within the New Orleans Saints organization, on that coaching staff, on camera, off camera, on a recorder, off of a recorder, the messaging was consistent. Trevor Penning's a tackle. There was no indication from anybody within the building, at least to me, that they were interested in moving Trevor Penning to guard or to the inside or even trying him there. Never did it. Saints never did it. No one ever really said that that was something they did. No matter how pointedly you asked the question, no matter how many roundabout ways you tried to ask the question, no one ever seemed to go along with the idea that Trevor Penning would be moved inside. It is now a new coaching staff. And what I'm not saying is that now this coaching staff has indicated that they would be willing to move Trevor Penning on the inside. No one's made that indication yet. But we also haven't gotten a lot of opportunity to talk to this coaching staff, all these other things. So we'll learn more as we get out to OTAs on Thursday. OTAs begin today. We'll have media access on Thursday, subject to change, but that's the expectation at this time. So that's why I was so hesitant about it and why I pushed back about it. It was a public narrative. It was not an internal narrative along the New Orleans Saints. In fact, the internal narrative was quite literally the opposite. And so that's why I consistently push back around it. Like they're not going to do this. Could it work is a different question, right? Because we've seen it work recently. So while the Saints offensive coaching staff has not yet indicated verbally that moving Trevor Penning towards the inside is something that they're planning to do or that they might do or that they're interested to do or anything like that, I do think that there is something worth noting in the fact that Kelvin Banks Jr., the first round pick this year, played a little bit of left tackle, a little bit of right tackle, a little bit of left guard, a little bit of right guard, like played all four of these positions during rookie minicamp. That was going to be the rookie minicamp plan regardless, right? Just get him playing in a bunch of different spaces, get a look at him in all those different places. It's a way to kind of get an evaluation on him in all those different spots, yada, yada. So with that, if you're willing to plug Kelvin Banks Jr. in at left tackle, then it means you might be willing to move Taliesin Fuang at a right tackle. If you're willing to plug Kelvin Banks Jr. in at right tackle, then you might be willing to move Trevor Penning somewhere else, right? So if you're willing to do that, and you're willing to get these looks at Kelvin Banks Jr., then it at least expresses some level of openness to moving around and shuffling around the offensive line in an attempt to get one of the get those five best offensive linemen on your roster out on the field, regardless of position. And so I think the Kelvin Banks thing is a little bit of an early indicator of what could be true for the Trevor Penning conversation. The other piece is you invested a first round pick in Trevor Penning. You probably want him out on the field. Whether it's at tackle, whether it's at guard, you probably want him out on the field. The Saints didn't pick up his fifth-year option, which I think is important, not because I don't think that the fifth-year option, not because I think that not picking up the fifth-year option is indicative of the Saints not being interested in keeping him around, but I do think that it gives them a little bit more freedom. They pick up the fifth-year option, they're locked into a $16 million base salary situation guaranteed for his fifth year because that's what tackles get paid. But if you're moving him into guard, why would you guarantee him tackle money? So I think that declining the fifth-year option makes sense if the Saints do indeed intend to move him around or allow him to potentially be a rotational guy. But I think that the combination of passing up on the fifth-year option, not wanting to guarantee him the tackle money, but knowing that you invested a first-round pick in him, and that he showed immense improvement last year. Let's not forget that, particularly as somebody that was really, really effective in the run game, a guy that Brandon Thorne called one of the top 5 run blocking offensive right tackles in the NFL last season, that those two things put together indicate more to me some willingness to try him elsewhere before making him a rotational piece. So you have the investment and then the curb of later investment. And I think that those two things are important. The other thing is you look around the NFL right now, the two best run games include offensive tackles that have moved inside to guard. Mekhi Becton last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Daniel Falele, who played tackle and then moved inside for the Baltimore Ravens last year. Now, here's the thing, okay? Mekhi Becton, 360 plus pounds. Daniel Falele, 380 pounds. Trevor Penning, 325 pounds. Now, he is one of the heaviest players on the team based on the Saints team roster on their website, right? And so the opportunity to move him inside, play to his athleticism, play to his run blocking strength, and get another big body in the middle of the defense, big body relative to what the rest of your offensive line looks like typically, I think that there's value there too. And I think that that's a place where we're going to be able to see if the Saints do move Trevor Penning on the inside, that we've watched these run games benefit from these tall, big-bodied tackles moving towards the inside with two of the best run games in the NFL last season. And you know that the run blocking game has consistently been Trevor Penning's strength. That was everything about him coming out of Northern Iowa. He's ready as a run blocker, needs to develop as a pass blocker, and he was outstanding as a run blocker last year. So you do get the opportunity to continue to play to that strength. OTAs begin today. If Trevor Penning is there participating, remember OTAs are voluntary, I think we might get a little bit of an opportunity to see this. The Saints are not going to do 11 on 11s. Kellen Moore said as much during the golf tournament on Monday. They will do 7 on 7, but we're still going to see offensive line drills and stuff like that. So we'll see where the offensive line is lined up. I would not be surprised if we see number 70 get some snaps on the inside. If they do, I think that gives you a pretty good indication of what they're at least willing to look at, right? This is OTAs. Try stuff during OTAs and then in training camp, kind of figure out what the actual setup is going to be. But I think that we'll start to see potentially very soon whether or not this Saints coaching staff is more interested in potentially giving Trevor Penning an opportunity on the inside than last year's coaching staff or the last few coaching staff since he's been drafted have been willing. So we'll see here very, very soon with OTAs underway and us being there on Thursday. Coming up in tomorrow's episode, as I get back to New Orleans, I want to dive into a little bit of what we're expecting to see from OTAs from the offensive side. We'll take a look at what this quarterback competition begins to look like early, what we're expecting, who'll get first team reps, all that kind of stuff. And we'll take a look a little bit more at offensive line, wide receiver, all of that as well. So we'll dive into what we're expecting to see from OTAs on the offense in tomorrow's show. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, making us a part of your routine, saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.